It's been a long time coming. After the release of its smash hit Destiny in 2014, fans urged Bungie to bring a PC version to life as well. Alas, it never happened. The original Destiny laid out a winning formula on console, an ambitious cross-gen project, but the fact is it could only be played at 30 frames per second on PlayStation and Xbox systems with visual settings locked in place by the developer. That is until now. A month on from Destiny 2's launch on PS4 and Xbox One, Bungie shows us what it's capable of with a full PC conversion of a much improved sequel, and it doesn't disappoint. Today I'll be focusing on the key advantages you get compared to the experience on a base PlayStation 4, the most widely used console version. Features like mouse and keyboard support are in of course and well implemented, but it's the suite of graphics tweaks and support for just about any monitor setup you can imagine that makes it stand out and gives PC a tangible visual advantage. As of making this analysis, the latest drivers for the game haven't been released, meaning I'll hold back on performance tests for now. Also, while the frame rate counter has been fixed since the beta, there's no overlay support in the game, which rules out a proper frame rate analysis above 60 frames per second at the moment. With all that said, let's focus on the main game changer over console. Destiny 2 now runs at 60 frames per second and beyond, even up to 200 FPS if your display can handle it. It's like a breath of fresh air after hundreds of hours playing Destiny 1, and even at a mere 60 FPS, it's considerably smoother than what we have on PS4 or Xbox One. So here's PC in full flow on a GTX 1080 Ti running at 1080p and max settings, though with a tweak I'll cover in a second. There's plenty of headroom to keep the game ticking at a lock 60. It looks and feels incredible. However, it's a classic case of opening a Pandora's box on PC. Once you see this, it's hard to move back to PS4 at a locked 30 FPS. Of course, you get used to a console's half refresh after a while, and 30 FPS is made easier to handle by using a controller, but the option to finally play Destiny at 60 FPS is difficult to turn down. The only slight disappointment on PC is that cutscenes still render at 30 FPS just like console, though these scenes typically upgrade visual settings. For example, when depth of field is set to high, the sample percentage is higher during cutscenes than during gameplay. Having the option to toggle these to 60 FPS would have been nice, but it's possible the motion capture and animations were only designed for 30 FPS. Either way, it's the gameplay that matters, and that's where we get the biggest leap. To follow that up is a boost in image quality, taking us beyond the 1080p image on console to 4K or higher if your GPU will allow it. This is probably the first thing you'll experiment with after getting the PC version, but if you're like me, you'll notice a problem. Even with a high resolution set in place, the fact is the anti-aliasing options provided here aren't thorough enough. You get two post-process AA options, FXAA and SMAA, but neither treats all sawtooth edges and noise across the game. For reference, the PS4 version runs with FXAA, which is more effective in softening these rough points, but at the cost of a slight blur to the whole image. On the other hand, PC's newer SMAA option treats aliasing without the drawback of blur, but it still leaves many edges behind. Especially in areas with lots of meshes and sharp metallic outlines, SMAA fails to solve the flickering edges at a popular resolution like 1920 by 1080. Now, performance costs are low for both of these, barely 1 frame per second from your GPU's rendering budget. If I had to pick one, I'd go with FXAA, if mainly to minimize the distraction, but it's not faultless. Unfortunately, the experimental MSAA option of the beta has been removed too, with the developer stating it just doesn't play well with the deferred rendering setup of Destiny 2. The good news is there is still an option, if a GPU intensive one, to really lock down image quality. At the bottom of the screen is resolution scale, a slider that operates much like Nvidia's DSR mode or AMD's VSR, letting you super sample from a higher resolution. Remember when I mentioned the extra tweak I had in place? Well, this GTX 1080 Ti footage is actually being put to work with 200% scale, rendering a 4K image sampled down to 1080p. It takes a powerhouse card like this to run obviously, and it's not for everyone, but without a doubt it gets the best picture from the game I've seen. The one caveat is, to achieve this, you have to drop depth of field by one setting, from highest to high, in order to keep a stable 60 FPS. We're in 50 FPS territory otherwise, but with that one small tweak, this card is hitting 4K 60 at max settings with no problem at all, and that sacrifice is barely noticeable. Resolution isn't everything though. The great thing about Destiny 2 on PC is its scalability across multiple monitors, resolutions, and even different aspect ratios like 21:9. Another welcome option is an FOV slider, which defaults at 85 on PC, giving us a wider scope of the environment than PS4's default setting of 75. You can bump that right up to 105 if you choose, though for comparison's sake I'm keeping it closer to the console setting. Matching frames like this makes a comparison much easier, and at max settings PC's visual upgrades come to light. It's very quickly obvious this is not a quick and dirty port, but a carefully tuned release on PC with lots of great enhancements and features. Take the textures for example. We're told the game uses a dynamic mipping system, adjusting textures on the fly based on load, though often too subtle to notice in most cases. In a complex scene like the farm hub area though, it's clear texture mips are lower quality on PS4. Switching to PC at its highest setting, we're getting an upgrade in texture quality here over what a base PS4 is pushing out. Anisotropic filtering quality has an even bigger impact on PC, especially when dialed up to 16 times. Whole surfaces are cleaned up, showing extra detail across metallic floors, in this case next to the 4x setting we have on PS4. It's a setting that's thankfully improved on the PS4 Pro version, but on PC it goes all the way, and each detailed surface is cleared up nicely. This affects the shadow cascade as well, meaning shadows appear cleaner the further you look into the distance on PC. And to back that up, the base shadow quality, even up close, is vastly improved on PC's highest setting. It's still a tad blocky depending on how far the light source is and the positioning of the object, but character shadows are a league ahead of the blocky dithered implementation on console. For example, this base PS4 shadow falls well below the top setting on PC, and even PS4 Pro's slightly improved shadows don't come close. It's a very satisfying upgrade. Next up is the ambient shadowing or ambient occlusion that fills out the world. Now on PC you get two options, the high definition AO setting, which is used in a highly optimized form on PS4, but also a more taxing 3D AO setting that's unique to PC. What this 3D setting amounts to in practice is potentially more accurate, richer shading between objects and characters in the scene. Take this opening shot as an example. Corners around our hero are filled properly with shade on PC, while the HD AO approach on console leaves it looking largely untouched. It also brings a very obvious change around small plants in the scene, creating, as it describes, a better sense of 3D space. As an exclusive setting, it's great stuff for PC users, but personally I found the effect can create some obvious halos around objects at times which can appear unnatural. For most cases though, it does a far better job than PS4's HD AO setting. Perhaps one of the more satisfying upgrades is in level of detail settings. There are 4 options on PC, focusing on environment, character, foliage and foliage shadow draw distances, and the change between each preset can be subtle. Taken as a whole, PS4 appears to use a mixture of medium and low settings across the board, meaning you do see obvious popping around the farm. Here's a long run across the area to prove the point. Compared to PC's highest setting, which renders plants and geometry in from range, PS4 is delayed in swapping to high quality LODs. Everything is already rendered on PC, from the rock geometry to the plants and the shadows underneath. The performance penalty isn't major here, so most PC users can ramp all these up to high without any major issue. On the other hand, depth of field and light shafts are now much improved over the PS4 implementation, but do take a toll on GPU resource. We have depth of field running at the high setting here, which to be specific, uses a 50% sample of the screen's total resolution during gameplay to create a bokeh effect, and 100% during cutscenes. It's a big improvement over PS4's rough scaling of the effect, and meanwhile for light shafts, outlines no longer produce aggressive shimmer on PC either. It's all cleaned up. Overall then, Destiny 2 may be seen as a console shooter first, but it's been adapted beautifully for PC thanks to Bungie's technical wizardry and sheer determination to get it right. Visuals are embellished nicely over the existing release, 60 FPS and higher is a reality, and while I am disappointed by the post anti-aliasing options, the sheer scalability across multiple monitors and resolutions makes up for it. Only one question remains then, how does performance hold up in the final build? Something we intend to look at once we have the means. For now, at least based on our beta coverage, it's clearly a well optimized game even on lower end cards like a GTX 750 Ti, which can comfortably hand in console settings. We'll look at this in more detail once updated drivers arrive from Nvidia and AMD, but in the meantime, if you did find this visual comparison useful at all, let me know with a like or subscribe. And as ever, we have this video uploaded at source file quality on our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net. Until next time though, thanks for watching.
Holiday is inbound. We need that ship off the field.